Today, we're going to crack open a fascinating linguistic mystery, one that's kind of hidden in plain sight in some ancient texts. It all comes down to a single Hebrew word, a word that, as you'll see, has been misunderstood for a long, long time and has ended up shaping some really big theological ideas.
So, our investigation really kicks off with this one pivotal verse from the book of Joshua. You've got the leader of Israel, Joshua, and he has this encounter with a mysterious figure, right? This figure is called the captain of the Lord's host, and the text says Joshua worshipped him. Now, that one word, worshipped, that is the absolute key to this entire puzzle.
And believe me, the stakes here couldn't be higher. Just based on that one little word, worshipped, this huge theological conclusion gets drawn. The logic is, pretty straightforward. Only God can be worshipped, right? So this mysterious captain, well, he must be a divine being. Some people even say this could be Jesus himself before his birth in Bethlehem. That's a really powerful claim, and it all hinges on how we understand that one word.
But what if we've been reading it all wrong? What if the translation itself is the problem? What if it's led us down a path the original author never, ever intended for us to go down? That's the big question we're tackling today. We're going to peel back all those layers of translation and try to figure out what was really going on in that moment.
Okay, let's dive into our first section here, a puzzling encounter. We're going to focus on the main piece of evidence, that original Hebrew word at the heart of this whole mystery. So the word we're talking about is shasha. And here's the thing, its literal, most basic meaning, well, it has nothing to do with a spiritual state of mind. It's all about a physical action. It means to bow down low, to literally get on your face, to prostrate yourself. So think about that. It's describing a posture, not a theology.
And this isn't just a Hebrew thing either. When you look at related ancient languages, like Akkadian and Ugaritic, you find really similar words that also point to the exact same thing, a physical act of submission, of honoring someone superior to you. So the core idea, really, across the whole ancient world was pretty simple. You showed respect with your body.
Okay, so now that we've got the literal definition down, let's move on. We're going to look at the pattern of evidence and see how this word is actually used in other parts of the Bible. And trust me, this is where the case really starts to come together.
So if shakha really just means to bow down physically, what happens when we start looking for it in other places? Let's treat the text almost like a crime scene, a collection of clues. Let's see what kind of pattern pops up.
Okay, let's look at our first piece of evidence. Here you've got Abraham, and he does a shakah, but not to God. He does it to the local landowners. So was he worshiping them? No way. Of course not. He was showing respect during a business deal. It's a totally social gesture.
All right, here's another great example. Jacob, after being separated from his brother Esau for years, he bows to the ground 7 times. Is this worship? Absolutely not. It's this deep, profound gesture of humility, of wanting to reconcile, of showing respect to his family. He's physically showing deference to his big brother.
And we see it again. Joseph's brothers, they come to Egypt and they shachah before him. Now, they don't have a clue that this is their long-lost brother. To them, he's just some powerful Egyptian governor. So their bow, it's a clear-cut acknowledgement of the social and political pecking order. And you know what's really wild? Once you start looking for this pattern, you see it everywhere. I'm not kidding. David bows to King Saul, a woman of Tekoa bows to King David, Joab, his own general, bows to David, Nathan the prophet bows to David, Bathsheba bows to David. In every single one of these cases, shakha is being used to describe an act of social respect to a human king.
So the conclusion here, it's pretty much unavoidable. The evidence from the text itself is overwhelming. Shakha is simply the standard Hebrew word for the physical act of bowing down to show respect to someone above you. And it doesn't matter if that superior is a king, a landowner, or even just an older family member.
Okay, so now that we're armed with all this new understanding, let's go back and crack this case. We're going to revisit that original scene, Joshua and the mysterious messenger. It's time to finally solve this thing.
So this really leaves us with 2 different ways to read that verse. You've got the later interpretation, which kind of forces this idea of worship onto the text. But then you've got the original context, which suggests something way simpler. Joshua, who's a military commander, is just showing deep respect to a superior officer, one who happens to be from the heavenly army. It was just a normal, culturally appropriate, totally expected thing to do. And this wasn't just something the Israelites did. All across the ancient Near East, bowing was basically the universal language of respect. You bowed to kings, you bowed to prophets, and yeah, If you ran into a messenger from the divine realm, you would absolutely 100% bow to show respect for their authority and, for the one who sent them.
And Joshua wasn't the only one doing this. We see it elsewhere in the Bible, too. Abraham does a shaka when 3 angelic visitors show up at his tent. He's showing hospitality. He's showing reverence. Heck, even King Nebuchadnezzar, this powerful pagan king, bows down before the prophet Daniel after Daniel interprets his dream. He wasn't worshiping Daniel as a god. He was just acknowledging that a higher power was working through him.
All right, time for our final section, the verdict. So, how in the world did this simple word for bowing get so tangled up with our modern concept of worship? Well, it looks like it really just got lost in translation.
Okay, so the confusion really comes down to a translation issue. See, when the Hebrew Bible was first translated into Greek and then later into Latin, the word shaka got matched up with words like proskuneo and adore. The problem is, those words already carried a lot more theological weight in Greek and Roman culture. So in essence, these later theological ideas were kind of read backwards into the original Hebrew text.
And listen, if you're looking for the smoking gun, this is it. Ancient Hebrew actually did have a specific word just for religious devotion. It's the word avad, which means to serve. So if the biblical writers wanted to say that Joshua was performing an act of religious service, they had the perfect word for it, but they didn't use it. They chose shakaha, the word for a physical posture.
So the most important thing to take away from all this is that the verb shasha itself is basically neutral. It just describes an action. The meaning of that action, whether it's just simple social respect or deep religious reverence, is completely determined by who is on the receiving end of the bow. You bow to a king, it's respect. You bow to God, it's reverence. See? Same action, totally different object.
And that brings us right back to where we started, and it solves the puzzle. Joshua's bow wasn't some big theological statement about the divinity of the captain. No, it was just an instinctive, culturally normal act of deep respect for a seriously powerful messenger sent from the court of heaven.
This whole deep dive into just one little word really leaves us with a much bigger question, doesn't it? It kind of forces us to ask, what else are we assuming? What other ancient ideas are we completely missing just because we're reading these texts with our modern eyes, through all these layers of translation? It's just a great reminder that when it comes to this stuff, context is absolutely everything.